And we're getting to our campaign on inclusive education for all, which is supported by Star Ghana with funding from UK Aid, Danida, and EU.
It be my dream come true, oh. We know be perfect, too, oh. But as she there with me, where I did for you, we gon' make come true, oh. It be my dream come true, eh. We know be perfect, too, oh. But as she there with me, where I did for you, we gon' make come true, oh. I know they want make you go, want make you stay in bed watching your pretty face, baby girl. I be selfish with you, girl. I be selfish with you. No, they want make you go, want make you stay. Fall in love watching your pretty face, baby girl. I be selfish with you, yeah. Although you me do, although you me do. When I'm with you, I forget the world. And baby, although you been you, and so me don't go. I see your smile and forget myself.
This is 3FM 92.7.
When I'm with you, I forget the world. I miss you, and so me don't go. I see your smile and forget myself. I know they won't make you go. I'm watching your pretty face, baby girl. I'm selfish with you, baby. I'm selfish with you. No, they won't make you go.
All right, so now time for our discussion on inclusive education for all, and that's something we've been doing, and it's supported by Star Ghana with funding from EU, UK Aid, and Danida. And some time ago we brought you the story of Matilda Agbenyagan, who had to sit for the BEC. Let's listen to this report by Portia Gabo at the time, and then when we return, Matilda has joined us in studio. We have her resource here, we have her mother, and some other persons who are here to support, even as we talk more about inclusive education for all. Just listen to this story.
She braved the odds and joined over 251 candidates at the Medina Islamic Center to write the basic education certificate exams. Matilda is writing the mathematics paper. A student with cerebral palsy may find it difficult to write fast and legibly. In order to assist her, the West African Examination Council granted her the permission to use a laptop for exams. Matilda, how was the paper?
It was a bit difficult.
How does it feel to write the BC?
It feels normal, but the arrangement was a bit not okay. The buyer need to bring a computer, but they could not bring it.
Because of her condition, she couldn't write mathematics because there is no any software that can help her identify the diagrams and then symbols that can help her work out all the other things. I think they have to put certain things in place. Once they are talking about inclusive, we need to put everything together that everybody will benefit.
When the West Africa Examinations Council, WAEC, released results of the June 2016 BECE, Matilda qualified to be placed in school.
The Ghana Education Service is running an all-inclusive system of education now, and we made sure we place her in West Africa Senior High School.
I was privileged to watch the program on TV3 that showed us Matilda. At the time, she was writing a BEC, and I was touched indeed. And as if by design, he has been sent to West Africa Senior High School.
With support from her peers, teachers and parents, Matilda feels comfortable and is able to participate in class.
Maid servant. The maid belongs to which class of words?
And
Here for Matilda.
How are you coping in school?
quite.
Your colleagues here, how are they treating you?
Because they are treating me good. They help me in going around the school and we eat together.
TV3 brought to you the inspiring story of Matilda Agbenyega. She's now a student at the West Africa Senior High School and wants to be a nurse in future. She has one message for persons with disability, that disability is not inability. Matilda, however, wants one challenge addressed.
I want to tell Maya to provide the software so that doing exam can be faster and easier.
Portia Gabo, TV3.
All right, so that's the story from Portia Gabo. And like I told you this morning, we've been joined by Matilda Agbenyega. She's here, she's joined us, the CP student. We've also been joined by Joseph Sapong, who's resource teacher for Matilda. We also have joining us Hannah Awaji, who is executive director of Special Mothers Project. Matilda's mother is here, and Stefan Frolik is chief technical officer of IT Solutions, an IT solutions provider focused on client success. Good morning, all of you, and thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
I believe you're all doing very well.
You are doing well.
And a happy new year will not be in bad taste at all. Because we're just meeting this year.
Yeah.
Matilda, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Great. And how is school?
It's fine.
You have a lot of support in the environment?
Yeah.
So you're studying hard?
Yeah.
Great. I'll get back to you, Matilda, because Matilda was the focus of that story. But Joseph Sapon, you're a resource teacher for her. Tell us more about, her progress and how things are going.
I think she's now doing well, starting from where she came from. I think after primary school, she was in the house for some time. Then GHS, they consulted me and I said, okay, they can bring him to school. So based on that, we started some program. We integrated her into the mainstream, then training her. But with writing, she needs to use computer. So then we train her to how to use the computer. So sometimes when the exercise is given, we type it and then print it out for teachers to work, to mark it, and then give it back to her.
So everything she does, she must do it on the computer?
Yeah, on a laptop. She has to type everything to be printed out before, because her motor system is not working well. She doesn't have the skills to write with pen. So the only thing she can use is to use the computer to work with.
Let me get to Matilda's mother. I'm just, curious because Joseph talks about the fact that after school, she went home a little bit until they got into contact with him. At the time, why did you do that?
Matilda started school from the initial stages. No school was prepared to pick her. So I sent her to a private school. Okay, that one, it was just that she has to be there for you to go to work. And then when you come back, you pick her and then be with her. She started with a junior brother. And after some time, I realized that it was pulling the junior brothers back in education.
Okay.
So we decided to separate them. And somebody introduced me to the Medina special school. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So she went there for some time, and then later on she told me herself that what they do there is for the KG and the crèche. So she won't go there again. And no school was prepared to take her. So she was in the house for about 3-4 years.
Really?
Yeah. And then later on, a head teacher friend, told us that he will admit her into the normal school. And then she went there. She was able to cope with them. And then before then, the head teacher spoke with Mr. Sapon, and the arrangement was made. The resource teacher, and the arrangement was made. So she was admitted, and by God's grace, she was able to cope with them, and then wrote the BEC.
That's great. Hannah Waji, you've been one of the crusaders. The last time, and I believe this should be exciting for you, seeing Matilda, isn't it?
The first thing I said when I met her, the mother, was, you give us hope for our children. Because when we see young ladies like Matilda making it, then you see that, okay, my daughter who is 5 years old also have hope. But I also said that it should start from the basics. You see, her mother had to struggle, stay home and whatever. You can't work as a parent if your child is home and you don't have anything to do. In Ghana, we have an inclusive education policy. The Department of Social Welfare is supposed to enforce the law that makes daycare centers, early childhood educational centers, mandatory to have children with special needs among them. It is not, I keep saying, it is not rocket science to have a child like this in your class. It's nothing. It's just about wiping the bum or helping to feed. And that is nothing. So the more we embrace it, the more Matildas we have, because we know that they have potentials to even change the fortunes of our country around if we give them a chance. But we are not doing it.
But at least I believe that now things are beginning to change, aren't they?
We will have 1 or 2 schools saying, I'll accept. But as a mother, you go around, you go from school to school carrying your child with cerebral palsy, and people will say, wait, we don't take this one here. And as if the person is not a human being. And I keep saying, why do we rate intelligence with physical abilities? Because a child with cerebral palsy, it's not dumb. Excuse my language. A child with cerebral palsy is intelligent. The the cognitive part of the brain is intact. It's the motor skills, how they move. That is what has been injured and needs repair. So if you are denying such a child access to education, then we are denying ourselves fortunes in this country.
So where's your child? Where's your daughter?
My daughter goes to a school called Multi-Kids. Very expensive. How many can afford unless you get a scholarship or funding to do that? So it's very difficult. 90% of children with cerebral palsy are home.
Did you take her there because that was the only place they wanted to accept her?
That was my savior place, because before she got to Multi-Kids, I had changed 5 schools already, and that she was only 2. You know, I made her go to school at 6 months, because all my other children go to school at 6 months. And as she progressed in the school, you go and she is isolated or they have not fed her. So that makes her condition worse. You know, what they need is a lot of love, embrace, and affirming them. But a normal crèche, early childhood educational setting, will just dampen the child like that spirit. Where do you want to mean? Yes, she can't do anything. So they exclude the child from the other children and prevent the child from learning. So I realized she was getting worse instead of getting better. We stayed home for 1 year. I wasn't working, just to work on her before I got this school where I've put her now. And
I believe she's doing well.
She's doing well. She's doing well. They actually thrive in an environment where they are accepted and loved.
Okay. So, Matilda, when you go to school and, you see your colleagues, I believe they are very nice and, they accept you and you're friends with them.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, that's nice. At least then we're getting somewhere, Hannah, aren't we?
Yes, we are. And the problem, I think, is not with the children or the classmates or something, because I think they don't discriminate much. Majority depend on us, the adults. Because I've heard people say that even when people see that your child with cerebral palsy is in school with their children, they want to withdraw their children. What kind of mentality do we have as a society to be thinking like that? Because you don't know whether you will be able to give birth to. I never imagined in my wildest dream that I'll have a child with cerebral palsy. But here am I advocating for them because I have a child with cerebral palsy. You don't know what your child could be, what could make your child disabled. So why are you saying that I don't want my child to mix with a child who is disabled? Why?
Well, that's the big issue. Let me get to Stefan, because you are into IT solutions that focused on client success. How do you come in here? Help.
So you notice that when you look at people with special needs, or for example, Matilda with cerebral palsy disorder, what happens is they lack certain skills that would help them communicate efficiently, be able to sometimes understand material, or even just keep up in class. So this is where technology comes in and bridges that gap between their skills deficiency. So if she has problems with communication, there are tools that could help her, assist her with, say, voice generation. So she could type the words out and then they would be read out to you. So her communication becomes more efficient. There are tools that could help her even type words faster rather than always constantly struggling to type words like you and I. For typing as you do and I do, it's quite easy. But for people with these disorders, it becomes more difficult. So you need special tools that would help them type the same things but at a faster rate. So we're talking of things that you take for granted, like autocomplete and all that. But it must be specially tuned sometimes to them. The tools they use and all that needs to be refined and adapted to each person's inadequacies. So if I have a physical challenge with moving my hands, then we need to find an alternative for me. So technology is the gap between solving what's in her mind. She already has the cognitive ability to understand, but how to communicate it and bring it out for the rest of the world to see that this girl is a gem hiding behind whatever disorder she's facing. That's where technology can come in and bridge the gap. However, technology does not sit in isolation, or it does not. It cannot come out in isolation. You need special knowledge, like clinical knowledge and theoretical knowledge, sound information that would then be used by technologists to develop these tools for them. So for these tools to come up, you need to have some sort of dialogue between the clinical experts, then you need to have with the educational experts, see what the challenges are, and then try to mitigate it and fix that. So tools can be developed for people with disorders. She uses a laptop, but I don't know how much special technology has on there to assist her, even maybe answer her questions easily or whatever. If you were answering questions online, it's quite easy for you. Hit tab, you go through. But then for her, it might be more difficult because she needs to move a mouse around. You need to change that kind of interface for her. So special interfaces, special technology, software. It's a merge of hardware and software that can solve their problems, as well as the human institutions.
And so that's where you come in and you make it easier for them.
Yes, that's where we come in.
Have you done one for her already?
No, this is actually my first time meeting Matilda.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
And I'm sure after this you'll do one for her.
We'll try to find tools that would make her life easier and help her be more.
Do.
Yeah, we will.
Please do too. And I guess that puts a smile on your face, Matilda, doesn't it?
She's a strong girl.
Yes, and I like that bit, she says yes. And once we have all agreed, Stefan, it means it certainly has to be done. Yeah. And let me get to my brother here. He would also tell us something. You are from the social welfare department?
No, that's the brother.
Oh, that's the brother. Oh, okay. So you used to go to school with her?
Sure.
Tell me, how was it at the time?
Okay, it was perfectly normal.
Yeah, I'm listening. Go ahead.
It was perfectly normal. Only there are times you get to school and you see, because I'm with her. See, if I'm late for school, I'm more or less pardoned because they know maybe she delayed me or something. You understand?
Oh, okay.
So basically, it wasn't so difficult. But looking at her, she can do most things by herself and all that. She can eat on her own. She can wash. She can sweep, clean.
Oh, okay.
Basically do everything on her own. So she's not much of a big deal to live with and all that. Yeah.
No, that's nice. Yeah. That's nice. No, you could pull this microphone and ask that question.
I feel like asking him how he feels being a brother to Matilda, because I have a son who I really worry. When they are in my back seat and my daughter wants water, my son is only 3, but I go, Aaron, give Aaron water. And he's sometimes pouring it on him or something because he's also small and doesn't even understand. So how do you feel being a sibling to Matilda, who has cerebral palsy?
Okay, being a sibling to her, well, as I said earlier on, it's not much of a big deal. They are perfectly normal people, just like us. It's only they have a few problems, and I believe given the right measures, or when the right measures are put in place, they can also act within their own capacities and all that. Yeah.
So Hannah, there you have it. It's nothing extraordinary.
Is it? Yes, because like I say, he grew up with her, so it's normal, and that is what we need to translate to society. Because he grew up with it. Maybe if they were not from the same homes, he would have seen Matilda and stare or something. But this is a sister they grew up with,
exactly.
And he sees her perfect. That's what society should also do. That you see someone in a wheelchair or someone walking not really straight, and you don't just tag the person that, oh, they can't do anything, but you embrace them and see their potentials.
Well, I tell you what, I have a niece who suffers from that, and if you see how she and the brother are, there's nothing that can separate the two of them. In fact, wherever he's going, if he doesn't see a sister, if he goes out with a sister, he makes sure they would come together. He has all the time in the world. They would walk together. They are everything, and so I can understand where he's coming from. Once you grow up with somebody, and even once you become friends with somebody, you get to understand what the situation is. And that's it, basically. You're good to go. We need to be wrapping up on, this particular discussion, which is, supported by Star Ghana with funding from EU, Danida, and UK Aid. Just finally from you, you are the resource, you're the teacher for her. Tell us finally, and then what you have to say finally, and then we wrap it all up with everybody.
I think what I have to say is materials issue is a bit normal. If she's given the opportunity, she can function as anybody else. And then at the school level, we need to educate the colleagues in the school. As what we did was when she came in first, we have to invite others and tell them the condition, and then they accepted her. So when they accepted from the beginning, I think her movement in the school and everything was normal. And then when chance is given to her too, I think she can go further. I think if once our brother is in to support us in the ICT aspect, I think Matilda's dream of becoming a nurse in future will come true. That's what I feel.
Okay. Matilda will be the last person to speak. Hannah, finally from you.
So finally, I think that my focus is on the early childhood development centers. I think we should start from the basics and embrace children with cerebral palsy, and in extension, children with all disabilities, right from the word go, to help them properly integrate when they are in the junior high or senior high schools. We should embrace them. It's nothing abnormal or nothing strange.
Let me get to Matilda's brother and I get to the mother. Finally from you, what do you say?
Okay, finally, I would love to say, I think it's all about society's perception of cerebral palsy. Because I quite remember when growing up, when people see me walking, they stare here like in a kind of strange manner, as if they've seen someone from space or something. Meanwhile, she's also like a human being just like we are.
Exactly.
So I believe if society is educated that these conditions are real, and anybody at all could also, suffer from these conditions, it will be much better.
Okay. Yeah. Matilda's mom.
Okay. My word is, parents should be given education that if you give birth to a child with a problem, you shouldn't abandon the person that, this one, there's nothing good can come out of him or her. We should all help and then seek medical attention at the initial stage so that things can get better.
Okay. Thank you. Stefan, you are going to provide the tools for the Matilda later on. Yes. Finally.
So definitely, I think our educational system needs to incorporate means of making things easier for people with disabilities and who have special needs. So yes, we need to leverage technology as well as solve our human institutions.
All right, thank you very much, Stefan. And finally, to Matilda, because I'm sure right after this we'll begin negotiations with Stefan. He's going to make life very easy for you. What do you say to that, Matilda?
I thank him very much, and I educate parents to pay their roles.
Thank you. Thank you. Stefan, you see, Matilda has thanked you, and God has blessed you already. All right. Thank you, all of you, for joining us this morning. And this program is supported by Star Ghana with funding from UK Aid, EU, and Danida.